So one of my fondest memories in golf was watching the British Open when I was in high school at Royal Birkdale. Ian Baker Finch won, of course. I watched Seve hit the ball. I watched Vijay Singh, but I watched Jack Nicklaus warm up for an entire 45 minutes. And one thing that he did that I'll never forget, because at that time I don't think they had like big fitness facilities and chiropractors and massage therapists that guys were using then. He had a very simple basic warm up, and I've kind of always used it to this day, and I want to share it with you, okay? Because he was the greatest player that ever lived, and what he did to warm up is probably obviously pretty important. Before we get started though, if you like my videos, feel free to subscribe or like them down below. But also I've got some stuff that's different than YouTube. In the description below, you can sign up for a 3-part mini clinic that'll help you with the consistency in your golf game, totally free of charge. Okay, so back to Jack Nicklaus, right? He gets to the driving range at Royal Birkdale and he starts to get loose, and he does this pretty religiously every time before he hits golf balls.
I sort of stretch my lower back and forth. I do these things every morning just before I start hitting balls, just to make sure.
He takes the golf club, he puts it behind his back, and he starts to just move back and forth. Okay? So he's really emphasizing the middle or the lower part of his body, his hips and his pelvis, and he did this for probably a minute and a half before he hit any golf shots. And I always thought that was just so, different. He's really trying to warm up the middle. There's a lot of people out there that are stretching their arms, they're stretching their hands and wrists. There's nothing wrong with that. That's all great too. But the pelvis is such an interesting part of the body, and it's something that I see a lot of my students struggle with. Their pelvis is not very active. They're doing a lot of stuff with their upper body, and what ends up happening, if you look at their pelvis, right? See, I've got this white belt on. Their pelvis just stays very inactive and very level as they're moving. So I've got some pictures here of the great Nick Faldo, right? 6-time major champion. You notice how angled his pelvis is, with his trail side, his right hip being much higher than his left on the backswing. Then he levels off in transition. And now over here to just past impact, his lead side of his pelvis is much higher than his trail. So his pelvis is actively doing a lot of stuff. And what happens when our pelvis works correctly? Our shoulders work correctly. So something to always remember here, it's a game that's played with the ball on the ground. So in order to move properly, we need to have some tilt to our pelvis. That puts me in an inclination to where I can hit this ball that's sitting on the ground. Most of the players that I coach, so the ones with higher handicaps, their pelvis is very level. So you see, they might have made some turn, but they did not tilt enough to their pelvis. So with this level turn, they're going to do a lot of stuff with their arms as they're swinging back, or when they're swinging down. You see, when I'm like this, it's going to be hard to generate a lot of power from the ground. So the drill is, I've got a driver, right? Put it behind your back and kind of just on your belt line. It does two things. It makes you kind of have something touching your hips or your pelvis area. It makes you identify it more in your mind. But then as you go to swing, I want you to just first key in on the backswing. I'm actually actively using my feet. So before I even set up, I feel my feet pushing into the ground. I'm actively using my feet and my legs to turn and tilt my pelvis back to the top. And you notice from this view, when I do it, I get back to the top. I'm not leaning on my left side. So don't do it like this, where you tilt and my weight's on my left side, right, my lead side. I'm back here and my weight is fully off my lead side, okay, with my pelvis slightly tilted down towards the golf ball, okay? So now, like we see Faldo, now it levels off in transition, and then it actually goes back up. And what's making it go back up is this lead side push off the ground. Just like in the backswing, I pushed my right leg up, and that made my right side go up higher. Watch it from this view. Pushing my right leg up, that's extending me and giving me a good full turn to the top. Back down, and now push back up on this side. So from this view, you'll see the lead side push up. And that's how we really can actively use our lower body to generate more power, okay? It generates more power, but as you start to do that and you put it with your golf swing, it generates better angles. So you see how my body is properly angled down at the ground. And then over here, I've got enough side tilt here because of what my pelvis is doing. So for those of you out here that are hitting balls like this, you can see we're never going to really actively use our lower body very well. So doing this really helps you to open up your pelvis, your hip girdle. You really start to feel more flow. You start to feel more fluid as you move through the ball. But that definitely is a big, big thing in just modern golf today. So many of you are sitting at work all day, and I'll see even when you get to the golf driving range, I call this office posture. You're still sitting, and then you're hitting shots, and we're basically sitting the whole time with a very inactive pelvis. So get in there, get set and ready, feel the ground, feel a little stretch in the back of your hamstrings, and then start to really actively warm up the way the greatest player ever did warmed up. And you'll have that same lower body action that he did. All right, I hope that helps, and I will see you around for the next video.